gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Intentional Grounding. I'm your host, the Wild Irishman, and I'd like to thank you for joining me during this incredible holiday weekend. I hope you all are staying safe during this Thanksgiving weekend. I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving wherever you are, and whoever you may have been celebrating it with. But now let's get on to the sports week. Holiday weekends in football are always fun, and I would like to start this episode by discussing the two NFL games we had on Thanksgiving yesterday. First up, we had the 12:30 matchup between the Houston Texans and the Detroit Lions, in which Houston, after a slow start, came out firing against Detroit and ended up winning 41-25, led by a phenomenal performance by Deshaun Watson and receiver Will Fuller. Those two hooked up twice, as Will Fuller had 171 yards and 2 touchdowns. Deshaun Watson ended up with a total of 318 and 4 touchdowns for the Texans. And Detroit's defense once again was torched on all ends. Adrian Peterson, however, looked good for Detroit. He had a few bursts, had 2 touchdowns in the game when they were inside the 10. But I believe this was a statement game for the Texans. Now that they are under the new head coach, after firing Bill O'Brien, they are saying that they are trying to create a resurgence and showing that by the time next season rolls around, the Texans will be back. And looking at the AFC right now, Houston could try and make a playoff push. They are currently sitting at 4-7. Best case scenario, they sit at 9-7. And if many things roll their way, they might be able to scratch their way into a 7 seed. But I don't believe that'll happen. On Detroit's end, they are also sitting at 4-7 and trying to claw their way back into the NFC playoff race. And same scenario with Detroit. Best case scenario, they could go 9-7 and claw their way into a 7 seed. But that's just a bit of blind optimism. I don't think that's going to happen for either of them. Speaking of 4-7 teams in playoff spots, the Washington football team now leads the NFC East with a 4-7 record, as yesterday they defeated the Dallas Cowboys 41-16 on Thanksgiving. This was not remotely close. Dallas's defense could not stop anything that Washington threw at them. Antonio Gibson had the greatest game of his rookie season, going 115 for 3 touchdowns on 20 carries. Alex Smith, he was okay. But overall, I think it was the run game of Washington that won that game. And Washington's defense, as well, I believe is truly underrated. They are currently a 4-7 team. Obviously, their defense does normally give up a lot of points, but Washington's defense does not get the credit that it deserves. The addition of Chase Young only helped their status. But I believe this is Washington's division to lose. Why do I say that? Well, I believe that Philly has the hardest schedule going out. And now that Washington holds a lead, it is up to them to try and hold on to it. If Philly or even the Giants or the Cowboys wins this division, that is on Washington themselves. It is up to Washington to hold on to their lead, even though it is only a 1-game lead, in order to clinch that NFC East playoff spot. That being said, let's move on to some college football, because it's Black Friday, and you know the day after Thanksgiving, there's always some good college football that will be played. For example, we have a good noon kickoff between the 13th ranked Iowa State Cyclones and the 17th ranked Texas Longhorns in a battle for what seems to be the top spot in the Big 12. whichever team wins this game in Austin will most likely be one of the two teams in the Big 12 championship this year. If it is the Cyclones, they are a virtual lock. If it is the Longhorns, they just need help. Ultimately, I think it's going to come down to which defense can make the most stops. Texas defense will have a tough task against Breece Hall, who I believe is an underrated running back in college football. He does not receive the credit that he deserves for Iowa State. I believe he should even be a Heisman candidate. He is the leading rusher in the FBS and has been not given the credit that he deserves for the Cyclones. On the quarterback side, I'm looking at how Sam Ehlinger will be able to expose the Iowa State defense in this game. Ultimately, I think it will be the Texas Longhorns who will secure the win in this one and make a claim for the Big 12 championship. They will get the win in a very close, high-scoring game, 34-31 over the Cyclones. And this, for Texas, sets up a rematch with the Oklahoma Sooners in the Big 12 championship. Well, most likely. All depends on how Oklahoma's season goes. Next up, we have the second-ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish traveling down to Chapel Hill to take on the 19th-ranked North Carolina Tar Heels. And this game will be fun to watch. You have a quarterback duel, which will be electric between Ian Book and Sam Howell. You have Williams versus Williams in the run game. Kyron Williams for Notre Dame versus Javonte Williams for North Carolina. And you have two stellar defenses looking to make a claim here in the ACC. This will be fun to watch. I believe it will come down to which quarterback will be able to make the last play. Both these defenses looking to make a statement, but Notre Dame's defense, led up front by Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, will be able to get a lot of pressure on Sam Howell, force him into some bad throws, and Notre Dame's defense will win this game for the Irish. They will remain undefeated in a close game against the Tar Heels, winning this one 27-20. In Tampa, Florida, we have a rivalry between UCF and South Florida. Now, rumor has it that there may be a chance that UCF quarterback Mackenzie Milton, who suffered a near career-ending injury 2 years ago against this same team, could possibly play in this game. That all depends, I believe, on if UCF will be able to run up the score against the Bulls. Dylan Gabriel, the current quarterback for UCF, I believe will have a stellar game against a very staggering South Florida defense. And the Knights will win this game by at least 30 points over their rivals. And I would love to see Mackenzie Milton come back and play in this game. It may be false optimism because we really don't know the time frame of his return, if any. But I would love to see him play football once again, knowing his story and knowing the injury that he had 2 years ago. It would be incredible to see him walk out and play football again. Next, it's the return of the big game between Stanford and Cal, one of the oldest rivalries in college football. This year played against two winless teams. Stanford a 1.5 point favorite, with two defenses who have struggled desperately these first couple of weeks of Pac-12 play. In the end, the quarterback for California, Chase Garbers, will have a great game and will lead the Bears to victory in what will be a high-scoring matchup in the Pac-12, 45-41 over the Stanford Cardinal. An in-state rivalry between the 15th-ranked Oregon Ducks and the 1-2 Oregon State Beavers. Oregon a 13.5-point favorite, led by quarterback Tyler Show, and he will show the college football world what Oregon is truly made of. As I had mentioned last week in this podcast, I don't believe Oregon has a shot of making the college football playoff, but I believe this is still a talented group. And ultimately, I don't think this game will be remotely close. I will take the Ducks 48-14 over the Beavers. Now we move on into some Saturday football. At noon, we will have a game between two teams in the Big Ten which have fallen into the pit of misery. Penn State, winless at 0-5, going to Ann Arbor to take on 2-3 Michigan, with two coaches, James Franklin and Jim Harbaugh, whose hot seats are starting to burn them alive. The key to this game will be the quarterback play between Sean Clifford of Penn State and the brand new starter for Michigan, Cade McNamara, who made a surprise entry into the game against Rutgers last week and stole the show for the Wolverines, leading them to victory in double overtime. This is where I believe Penn State finally gets it done. Their defense makes a final stand in what I believe will be poor offense, poor defense, just an all-around terrible game. But ultimately, in the end, James Franklin's crew will get it done to secure their first win of the season, but I don't believe it will save James Franklin's job. I believe that James Franklin will be out at the end of the year, despite this first win. I don't think they're going to go winless this season. And with a win for Penn State, Jim Harbaugh is slowly inching closer towards losing his job. I believe these are two coaches that had great seasons at both programs, but could just never get it done. And I don't believe either of them deserve to be where they are right now. I'll take Penn State to win this probably 20-17 over Michigan. We finally get some action on a Saturday as undefeated Kent State takes on undefeated Buffalo for what looks to be the top spot in the MAC. I believe the Golden Flashes, led by quarterback Dustin Crum, will be able to torch this Buffalo's defense. But running back Jared Patterson for Buffalo will run the Bulls to victory in a close knotted game with the Golden Flashes. This one will end 38-35, a win for Buffalo to remain undefeated. The Iron Bowl will be played early this year as number 1 Alabama hosts number 22 Auburn, led by Heisman hopeful Mac Jones for Alabama. And I believe he will be the biggest factor in this game, being able to tear apart Auburn's defense by the seams. A number of big plays from Najee Harris as well as he boosts his Heisman status. Alabama's offense will be a lot to handle. But I know how the Iron Bowl works, and I believe this may be a shot for Auburn to pull off what may be the biggest upset of the season, as number 22 Auburn will go to Tuscaloosa and fall just short of getting an upset over number 1. Alabama will win this game off a missed last-second field goal by the Tigers. Alabama wins 30-27. You know what? No. This one will be higher scoring than that. This game will be 40-37. The final. Deja vu for Clemson fans as the number 3 Tigers play host to Pittsburgh in their first game since all of the COVID happened with them. They had their game canceled last week against Florida State. And this could be another trap game this weekend. Pitt is known for pulling off the big upsets late in the year. This happened before. Just a few years ago, Pitt went in against, I believe it was number 3 Clemson in Death Valley, and pulled off an upset over the then third-ranked Tigers. I believe Clemson was number 3 at the time. Don't quote me on that. I'm not for certain. Clemson comes in as a 24-point favorite. I'm not sure who is playing quarterback in this game, if Trevor Lawrence is returning, or if it's Uiagalelei who will be remaining in that spot. Oh, what's that? Oh, I am being told that Trevor Lawrence is good to go and will play his first game in nearly a month against Pittsburgh. Now you're bringing Trevor Lawrence back into the mix. And I believe this one will be closer than the experts think. But Trevor Lawrence will help Clemson pull away in this game and help to possibly set up, or will most likely set up, a game in the ACC Championship against Notre Dame. Clemson will win this one 45-30 over the Pitt Panthers, even though Kenny Pickett for Pitt will have a huge game throwing the ball. But it will be Clemson's offense with Travis Etienne and the returning Trevor Lawrence that will hold strong in this game. Pitt will have some major plays against a stumbling Clemson defense, but the Tigers will get the win and remain in the top 4. In a game I never thought I'd cover, the 4-1 Boise State Broncos will host the unbeaten San Jose State Spartans. Yes, you heard that correctly. San Jose State is undefeated after going on record as one of the worst teams in the FBS over the last number of years. The Spartans are 4-0 and currently in a tie for the lead in the Mountain West. I believe this is their year to shine. But, however, I believe that the Spartans, led by Nick Starkel at quarterback, will struggle against the Broncos defense on the blue turf. And the Boise State defense will win this game in a close call against the Spartans, 24-22. Boise State hands San Jose State their first loss of the season. The pitiful defending national champions, LSU Tigers, go to College Station to take on the 5th-ranked Texas A&M Aggies. This could be a setup for a trap game. Nobody's expecting LSU to even make this game close, but that underestimation could lead to a downfall for Kellen Mond and A&M. I don't think that's going to happen, though. I think this is A&M's chance to prove that they deserve to be pushed into the top 4, sitting just outside at number 5. Kellen Mond will have a Heisman Trophy caliber game against the LSU Tigers, and A&M will win this game, scoring at least 40 against the Bo Pelini defense of LSU that has been tragic this year. Tragic. A&M wins it 48-27. This will not be a game like 2 years ago or last year. I forget which year it was. It was either last year or 2 years ago where this game went to 7 overtimes. That will not happen again. A&M wins this one by 21. Now we move on to the NFL. The 3-7 Falcons will play host to the 6-4 Las Vegas Raiders. Coming off a heartbreaking loss to the Chiefs last week. Derek Carr is pissed off. He will come out firing in this game Josh Jacobs will run all over this Atlanta defense. Matt Ryan will be forced into a number of bad decisions. He will be sacked at least 5 times, as he was sacked, I believe, 8 times last week against the Saints, as this Falcons offensive line is just tragic. I'd like to use that word, tragic. Yeah. But the Raiders will dominate. Coming off a heartbreaker against Kansas City, they will dominate. They will win this game by 20, 37-17 over the Falcons. In what could most likely be the game that determines the winner of the AFC South, the 7-3 Colts will host the 7-3 Titans. These two teams played earlier in the season in a game that the Colts took 34-17 in what was probably the first game that Derrick Henry was stopped. The Colts defense has been the answer for their woes. But I believe Derrick Henry is out for revenge. He will have a 100-yard game this week against the Colts defense. But it will be up to Ryan Tannehill, ultimately, for the Titans to make some good plays. I know Phillip Rivers will be able to have a great game against a Titans defense that has been troubling over the last few weeks. But I take the Titans to win this one and possibly set up a rubber match in the playoffs, because I'm assuming that both of these teams will make the playoffs this season. I say the Titans will win this one 33-32 in a 1-point game off a last-second field goal for the Titans' victory. Teddy Bridgewater returns for the Carolina Panthers as they go to Minneapolis to take on the Vikings. Two teams that are looking to make a last-second playoff push. Both teams sitting at 4 wins. But I'm going to take the Vikings in this game solely because Christian McCaffrey will not return. If McCaffrey was to play in this game, I would take the Panthers to win against a staggering Minnesota run defense. After last week, the embarrassment that they had against the Cowboys wasn't really an embarrassment, if I don't want to say that, but the Vikings gave that game away. I think the Vikings bounce back and get some revenge. Dalvin Cook gets at least 100 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns this week, as the Vikings will win 34-26. In a rare afternoon game on NBC, the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers will host the Baltimore Ravens. Now, before I get into this game, there is a chance that this game will not even be played. A number of COVID-positive cases for Baltimore have popped up, including Lamar Jackson, who just tested positive yesterday. If this game is played, I don't see any way that Pittsburgh loses this game, knowing the amount of players that will be out for Baltimore. Pittsburgh will remain undefeated if this game is played on Sunday, and it will not be as close as I normally would have predicted it to be. The Steelers will win this matchup 31-20 if it is played. If it is not played and possibly moved back to another date, let's say possibly Thursday, because I've heard Thursday brought up, I'm still going to take Pittsburgh. I really don't see anyone beating Pittsburgh this year. There is a chance that the Steelers might end the season undefeated. But if there is any team that could really do it, I think it might be Baltimore. But it has to be a healthy Ravens team. Without Lamar Jackson and without a stellar run game, there is no one who can beat the Steelers. I mean, next week when Pittsburgh goes to take on Washington, I'd like to see Washington win that game and actually stake their claim for the NFC least title. But I really don't see any. The only team on here that I see having a chance of beating Pittsburgh is Buffalo. And that's a Sunday night game in 2 weeks. You know what? Yeah, I'm just going to look at Pittsburgh's schedule. I'm going to look at Pittsburgh's schedule and tell you whether or not they will stay undefeated. I say they will beat Baltimore if the game's played on Sunday. They will dominate against Washington next week. Trap game against the Bills on Sunday night. There is a chance that the Bills might actually hand the Steelers their first loss. That all depends on it if the Bills' defense can show up like they have before and stop Big Ben and this incredible Pittsburgh offense. Cincinnati will not beat Pittsburgh. That is a Monday night game. The Colts, could happen, could not happen. I don't think Phillip Rivers will have enough. I think that Pittsburgh's defense will give Phillip Rivers trouble in that one. And then January 3rd, final game of the season against the Browns. No. The Browns are not going to beat the Steelers. That game will not be close. So yeah, the only team that I see giving Pittsburgh a run for their money is Buffalo. Moving on to a matchup in the NFC West between the San Francisco 49ers at 4-6 and the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams, coming off a huge victory on Monday night over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, now currently hold a tiebreaker lead over Seattle in the NFC West for first place. The 49ers won the previous matchup between these two teams back a few weeks ago on Sunday night, winning that one 24-16, but I believe the Rams are out for revenge. This is a different 49ers team due to all of the injuries that they have. The Rams defense will dominate just like they were able to take down Tom Brady on Monday, and the Rams get revenge on the 49ers, winning this one and sticking their claim to the NFC West title. Hopefully. I say the Rams win this one 30-24 over the 49ers. Speaking of Tampa and Tom Brady, the 7-4 Buccaneers will host the Kansas City Chiefs, the second best team in the National Football League. Coming off a stellar game against Las Vegas, the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes will have a huge game against Tampa's defense, who is slowly going down the drain. Tampa Bay is getting worse and worse as time rolls on because Tom Brady cannot figure himself out. Tom Brady, when he is playing good, is in a positive mindset and able to lead this team to victory. When Tom Brady makes one mistake, the entire team goes down with him, and that is why I like to use the analogy of a sinking ship for Tampa Bay. That is literally what this team is. It is ironic that their name is the Buccaneers, because this team is a sinking ship. When Captain Brady goes down and makes one mistake, the entire ship goes down with him, and I believe that's what will happen here. The Chiefs will outplay the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensively, and Patrick Mahomes will have another MVP-like game as the Chiefs will win 40-30. Well, 40-34. I think it will be a high-scoring game. Tampa Bay will get a lot of points against the Chiefs' defense, but Kansas City will push even closer to a possible 1 seed in the AFC if Pittsburgh somehow stumbles. On Sunday night, the oldest rivalry in professional football, the Chicago Bears taking on the Green Bay Packers. This could possibly be a trap game for the Bears to try and stop the Packers from pulling away in the NFC North. But after a huge loss to the Colts last Sunday, the Packers are out for revenge with a pissed-off Aaron Rodgers, who is looking to torch the Chicago Bears defense that has been dominant this year, but is slowly digressing. The Packers will dominate this game, winning by 13 over the Bears. I say final score 33-20. And on Monday night, the Seattle Seahawks take on the no longer NFC least leading Philadelphia Eagles. This game will not be close. I know I say this a lot on Monday, how I don't really get motivated about the Monday night games because a lot of the matchups are not good, I guess. But I don't believe this one will be close. Russell Wilson will tear apart the Eagles' defense. However, Miles Sanders, the running back for Philadelphia, will have a huge game against Seattle because Seattle's defense has been horrendous this year. Philadelphia will be able to keep it somewhat close, but Carson Wentz will falter against Seattle, and the Seahawks will ultimately take this one, let's say 28-23 on Monday night. So, that is it. I'd like to thank you all once again for joining me on Intention. It means a lot to know that I have any listeners at all. But once again, I'd like to thank you for joining me, and I will continue to keep up this show for as long as I possibly can throughout the duration of the football season. I hope you all remain safe during this wonderful holiday weekend. And as always, good afternoon, good evening, good night, and go Irish.